Thank you everyone for joining. I will assume that many of you have either jogged a mile at some point in your life, walked a dog, played a sport, have had an active gym membership, or have at least thought about doing one of these things. What if I said that your intentions to complete these activities could be easier than you'd think? And also, how do you think your attitudes and beliefs impact the amount of aerobic activity that you complete? It is recommended by the American Heart Association that adults should at least get 150 minutes per week of moderate intensity aerobic activity or 75 minutes per week of vigorous aerobic activity or a combination of both, preferably spread throughout the week. Harvard Health Publishing of Harvard Medical School published an article over exercise and fitness, stating that exercising regularly every day, if possible, is the single most important thing you can do for your health. In the short term, exercise helps to control appetite, boost mood, and improve sleep. In the long term, it reduces the risk of heart disease, stroke, diabetes, dementia, depression, and many cancers. There was a research conducted in 2016 by Leon, Valois, and Whitman. The research was over the physical activity of college students that was based off of the theoretical framework of the theory of planned behavior. The purpose behind this study was to measure the different conducting factors towards a college student completing physical activity. The measures tested were attitudes, subjective norms, perceived control, intentions, and the participants self-reported their own physical activity. A questionnaire was produced with 195 completed results from individuals 16 or over in age. The results recorded indicated that perceived control was strongly linked with the changes in intentions and showed growth that ended up predicting the behavior changes. The items that had no gender differences when observing were attitudes, subjective norms, and perceived control. By using a 7-point scale made by Fishbin and Ashton in 2010, many measures can be collected to find certain items for any research that is conducted. As you can see here on the model presented, the theory of planned behavior goes from looking at different background factors that could impact the outlook of all of the results, such as gender, culture, age, personality, and many more items that could look at a group of individuals differently. From background factors, it will then lead into behavioral beliefs, normative beliefs, and control beliefs. The beliefs in this model then lead into the attitude toward the behavior, perceived norm, and perceived behavioral control. These three items then help the researcher find which of these are significant with the intention that they then lead to the behavior. Through using this model, it gives the researcher more opportunities to find highly useful information that can help explain the results found. So, what is the purpose of this study? The purpose of this study is to use the theory of planned behavior to predict intentions to get the recommended amount of aerobic activity every week for the next 2 months. This specific study is not fully focused on college students getting the exercise they need, but is more so collecting an individual's reactions such as attitude, intention, perceived behavioral control, and perceived normative pressure towards aerobic activity. The data that is collected from the participants are expected to be able to significantly predict intentions. Based on the literature review results, it is expected that attitudes to be significant predictors of intentions. The participants that took this online questionnaire voluntarily from word of mouth or networking through a hyperlink were 126 females and 17 males. They were informed of the no direct benefits of taking this study. The participants did fill out some information about themselves, such as their ethnicity and even their age. The majority were identified as non-Hispanic, white, or Euro-American at 75%, and also identified at 85% as women. The average adult age was collected to be 50.78 years old as well. The participants were adults 18 years or older that had to consent first to be able to go on. The procedure was to have participants collected by word of mouth or follow through networking, such as a hyperlink, to complete this questionnaire. By following the hyperlink, individuals were given a description of the study with a consent page to follow, with asking if the individual was an adult 18 years or older. Answering yes had you move on to 7-point scale questions, while answering no stopped the questionnaire then and there. After the participant completed the 7-point scale questions over the measures of attitude, perceived normative pressure, perceived behavioral control, and attention with the questions presented in randomized order. They then filled out information such as gender, ethnicity, age, with appreciation of their participation following that page. The measurement of attitude was observed from 10 items, assessed both experiential and instrumental attitudes. An example item pulled from the questionnaire says, "For me, getting the recommended amount of aerobic activity every week for the next 2 months is," and then it gave you the options, 1 being bad all the way to 7 being good. Some other items have different options, such as positive to negative, valuable to worthless, unpleasant to pleasant, and more. Attitude came out to have a strong reliability score of 0.85. The measurement of perceived behavioral control had 8 items that were measuring both autonomy and capacity. An example item used all in the questionnaire was, "For me to get the recommended amount of aerobic activity every week for the next 2 months would be," with the options 1 being impossible to 7 being 1 being impossible to 7 being possible. There was a good reliability score recorded with this one of being a 0.78. The measurement of behavioral intention and perceived normative pressure were also measured. Intentions had 7 items with a strong reliability score of 0.95, while perceived normative pressure had 9 items with a good reliability score of 0.77. This slide shows a couple example items that were used in the questionnaire. For instance, A4 was an attitude item directed toward experiential. It says, "For me, getting the recommended amount of aerobic activity every week for the next 2 months is," with the possible answers 1 being unpleasant to 7 being pleasant. Another item used was I3, which was an intention item stating, "I expected to get the recommended amount of aerobic activity every week for the next 2 months," with the potential answering options 1 being strongly agree to 7 being strongly disagree. The descriptive and correlational results indicate that upon observation of the attitude, perceived normative pressure, perceived behavioral control, and intention were all seen to be favorable, with average scores greater than 4 on the 7-point scale towards engaging in aerobic activity. All measures were strongly and significantly correlated with one another, while attitude was measured to be the most strongly correlated with intention. The hypothesis that would all combine to significantly predict intention to aerobic activity in a multiple linear regression was conducted. The regression is shown to be statistically significant. It is shown that 72% of the variability and intentions were accounted for, which was attitude, perceived behavioral control, and perceived normative pressure. Attitude in the results are shown to have the strongest predictor of intention, while the next strongest would be perceived behavioral control. With all the results collected, it is observed through multiple measures that the hypothesis is supported through having attitude being a significant predictor of intention. All the reliability scores of each measure indicated a good, strong, or highly strong measure to back it up. From previous research, it is observed that this study was able to successfully replicate its findings. The limitations to this study was the limit of how far word of mouth or through how far networking could be spread. There was also a limitation of time to collect results from participants. Some suggestions for future research would be to extend the time the questionnaire is available to be open and to find a way to extend the outreach. Any future research is welcome to find more results to help better understand people's intentions towards completing aerobic activity. I want to thank you for joining me and listening to the results of this research.